right now, I'm working on an 8-unit building. It's a real estate owned by the bank. We closed 4 months ago in Stockton, a short sale. Remember those? The price of the property is worth less than the loan amount. Short sale. They sold short. They sold short. And, the lender had to take a loss, right? Working on the deal we're working on now, that got foreclosed upon by the lender. That happens in situations and circumstances where there's difficulty in the marketplace, like there has been, right? What we're going to talk about now, after the presentation of it rolling, is how to now make this situation and circumstance that we're in now work to your advantage in the best possible way, right? And there's ways to do this individually. That's what I was saying. If you're doing this by yourself, take the same principles and just try to figure out how do you do this by yourself. If you're enterprising, if you're ambitious, it's really bigger than doing things just by yourself, though, right? And even as an agent, if you know how to put 2 or 3 people together, say you find a great deal, but you don't have the money, and maybe you don't even want to buy it, but you want to sell it. If you know how to connect 2 or 3 people like-minded, you can show them the deal, you can analyze the deal. Now you can create value in times like this when everybody else is saying, oh, the real estate market's all bad. The news, the media, it's not a good look. And good and bad is a relative term. What they should be saying is where interest rates are high, prices have come down, this creates tremendous buying opportunities. Is that what they're saying on the media? No, because media is always going to play off people 2 things really: greed and fear in the markets. That's how they roll, right? We're gonna operate with knowledge, wisdom, and courage. Not being stupid. Okay, so people were doing deals last year, and I won't call a person stupid if they buy a property and didn't get inspection. They felt confident enough about that for whatever their reasons were. I wouldn't have done that, right? I didn't advise that. Some people are going to do that, and they're going to feel comfortable with that. But when we do deals, when we make moves, we're going to use knowledge, wisdom, and courage, all right? In times like this, this is the time for y'all to go out and make millions and millions of dollars in equity, hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash flow. Just whatever move that you're trying to make, now is the time. My boy Ryan and I, we were real active in the foreclosure crisis. We were flipping properties. It is the time to go. Now, today's topic, group investing, right? A little bit about me. Told you I started the company in 2009. That was when blood was on the streets. Now, a little bit fun fact that during that time, my wife was pregnant, our first baby, right? In my real estate office that I was an agent at, the only guys that were selling properties was the REO agents, people who had REO accounts. There's one guy, Mike Harden, he had, I think, Fannie Mae account. He had, at any given time, 5 to 10 listings on the market at that time. Everyone else was just scrapping. I was the only person selling apartment buildings and foreclosure, smaller units. And I said, you know what, I got to go start my own company. Yeah, my wife is pregnant, my first kid. I started my office, which means I now had, at that time, I didn't own a home. I rented my condo where we lived, but then I had to go rent an office. So I went from 1 rent to 2 rents, 1 PG&E to 2 PG&Es, 1 Comcast to 2 Comcasts. You see what I'm saying? But it was the perfect time. I wouldn't take anything back. Was it difficult? Hell yeah, it was difficult. But it was the time to start. All right, I'll leave all the rest of this stuff. I will say this: I'm a realtist. What a realtist is, a member of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. That's a Black real estate organization, and I had the honor of serving as president of ARPB, which is the local board, in 2015-16. The state board, I was the state president in 17 and 18. And in 2018, it was a busy year for your boy. Was also the state president for NorCal CCIM. CCIM stands for Certified Commercial Investment Member. That's a designation you get in commercial real estate. You got to go to a bunch of classes, do a bunch of business. But then I had the honor of being president, the first black president of that organization. Great organization. So your boy was busy at 18. But I just say all that to say is this. In doing all of that stuff, I learned a lot about people. And I learned a lot about when you're on the board, like for instance, you're president, those people don't work for you. So you can't just talk to them like they're your employee. You have to talk to them as if, hey, we're working through a deal. Very, very, very similar to what you might have to do if you're gonna go and put a group together to go buy real estate. Because if you have investors, or you are an investor, a part of that, nobody's working for someone else. Someone may have a higher ownership percentage than the other owner, but everyone's an owner. So you have to learn how to navigate that. And as we talk about group investing, that's probably one of the biggest things, one of the biggest challenges to success is being able to work with people. So whatever it is that you can do in your career, in your life, to where you can get experience with working with people in either a volunteer setting or a setting where when someone works for you, you tell them what to do, they do it. If they don't do it, you can, reprimand them, fire them, whatever. When you're dealing with volunteers, or you're dealing with a board, or you're dealing with investors, it don't work like that. You have to use some real skills, and those skills really help me out. Right? So whatever you can do, actually, if you're individually investing and you're investing as a group, to build your skill set on how to deal with people, that is going to help you out. Right? So a few things we're going to go through today. First of all, we're going to understand what group investing is, the different forms of group investing, and I'm not going to cover everything because there's a million of them. There's probably going to be 10 new ones, by the end of the year. The pros and cons of group investing, avenues of raising money, and the first action steps. Right? And I always go over pros and cons of any kind of idea that I'm presenting. All right. So the first thing to take a look at is, what is group investing? So when two or more people get together and buy the property, you form a group. It doesn't have to be 25 people. In fact, the less, the better kind. If you, 2, 3, 4 other people go out and buy a property versus 20 people, it's a lot less to manage. But that's all it takes, you and somebody else. A lot of people, when they think about buying real estate, simply only think about what they can do. And you have to get outside of that thought process. Doesn't mean you have to do that, but in terms of what is possible, what is available, right? It doesn't have to necessarily always be you. And it could be one other person. A lot of people, well, I don't have the money, or I don't have the credit, so I can't do a deal. And it's good to have money, it's good to have credit, let me just say that. So, make sure we all move forward. But that don't mean you can't do a deal, right? See, I've done a bunch of deals without no money, without no credit. I've seen people do deals, make a lot of money without that, because they did have something. They had a great deal, they found a great deal, and they knew how to put people together. So that's all it is. In its simplest form is that 2 or 3 of us, at least 2 of us, come together and we put together our ideas, we put together our resources to go out and buy properties. Now, how that looks can be wildly different. All right, here's just a couple forms of how that can look. And again, this is not all the ways of how you can invest as a group or as a team. First of all, joint venture, joint tenancy. This is kind of when the bigger firms do deals, they do like a joint venture. All right, and joint tenancy, though, is not the best way to own real estate as joint tenants. And the biggest problem with joint tenancy versus you can do a joint venture deal and have it structured differently, which is what the bigger companies do. But you can do joint tenancy and own properties. And what that means, say there's 3 partners, one partner dies, their interests go to the other 2 partners, not your heirs. So that's the biggest thing that's problem with joint tenancy. There's maybe some benefits for individuals and families, stuff like that, but it really doesn't fly. And you can do a joint venture in a different structure. And a joint venture is when 2 or 3 parties come together. Somebody maybe's got the money, somebody's got the credit, or somebody's got the deal, and we form an entity and do a deal. Now, a lot of people do it as joint tenants. That's not a good way to do it. I just want to explain, especially sometimes in this, it's good to know what not to do. Right? You can joint venture and structure it in an LLC or another entity. All right. Also, tenants in common. Now, you notice that both these words have tenants, but we're not talking about tenants. All right. Tenants in common is when you own a deeded interest of the property in a pro rata share. So let's say me, Ryan, Marquita, we got a property. All right. I own 23%. You own 27%. Right. We're at 50, and you own 50%. We would each I would own 23% of the deed, you would own 27% of the deed, you would own 50% of the deed, right? So the deed, there would be basically 3 different deeded owners, right? Not, let's just say like one LLC that owns the property, and then I own a percentage of an LLC, you own a percentage. That's different, all right? The significance of tenants in common is people who are doing 1031 exchanges, they have to have what's called a deeded interest in the property. They can't just roll money and that go into an LLC, and then they're, okay, they own an interest in the LLC. That would not qualify their exchange, right? So while that was really popular back in the day, in the old market from back, 03 to 08, was everybody was doing 1031 exchanges. So you sold the property because the market went up, made all this money, now I'm gonna roll that money over. Well, I'm gonna roll that money over to something where I have if it's a group deal, which is really popular for people doing 1031 exchanges, I have to have a deeded interest so I can go into a tenant in common structure. And instead of like one LLC and I own 23% of the LLC, no, I've got 23% of the actual deed, right? There's, as you can imagine, some complications with that, right? If you're trying to get a loan, when people need to sell the property, all of this type of stuff. But it can be a great way to put people together, especially if they have particular kind of money like 1031 tax deferred exchange. And essentially not to go in exchanges, but 1031 is meaning you sold an investment property and you go through this process. You have to put your money into a qualified intermediary within 45 days, find another property, and then that money goes and reinvests. And in doing that, you completely defer the capital gains taxes that you would have to pay. But you have to follow several rules in order to do that. That's why you would invest in what's called a tenant in common. Now, I don't have this on here, but what's very popular now, today, that is pretty much the same thing as a tenant in common, is called a DST, Delaware Statutory Trust. It's just another entity. But it's very, very, very similar to tenant in common. It's a way of holding title to where each investor gets a deeded interest in title. If there's one thing to think about in terms of what we're covering in group investing. When people are doing 1031s, they've got to have a deeded interest in the property, right? One way or another. Whether it's tenant in common, whether it's Delaware Statutory Trust, whether they have an LLC that owns part of the other LLC, but it's a deeded interest, it has to be a deeded interest. Not purely an LLC interest. It can be an LLC that has the deed. So if somebody sold a house in XYZ LLC and they go into a group deal, their XYZ LLC can have the deeded interest, but they gotta have a deeded interest. Very, very important. There we go. All right. Now, general and limited partnerships and LLCs. Now, general partnerships is not a great way of owning anything. It's where both partners share all the liability, and that can get messy. All right. So, limited partnerships is a better way to own real estate where you have partners. And there is a general partner in a limited partnership who is responsible for the management and operations of the deal. The limited partners are essentially their liability is only limited to the money they invest. If they put up 100 grand, they lose 100 grand, that's it. Because in real estate, you can lose your money and then you can end up owing the bank, right? Have a foreclosure. So there's double dips. There's multiple ways you can lose. All right, when you invest in a group as a limited partner, your only liability is the money you invest. Now, nobody wants to lose their money. But believe me, when I saw the great recession era, I saw plenty of people lose their money and have to go through foreclosure, right? Because they owed the bank, they lost their money, they owed the bank foreclosed, now they got the ding on the credit, right? That's what can happen if you're buying your own deal or you're part of your own deal, or you're the sponsor or general partner of an LLC, limited partnership. When you're just investing the capital, that's all your risk, right? Now, LLCs operate very similar to LPs, limited partnership. There's tiny differences, right? But it's very, very similar, right? The general partner is called the managing member of the LLC. And the limited members are just the investors, right? Very similar, a little bit structured. Yep.
Hey Steve, is there a benefit of holding the LLC out of state when you deal with real estate?
Well, great question. Okay, great question. And I know we've set some up out of state, like in Nevada, where the benefit to that would be you're not paying that state tax. Okay, what I mean by that is like, good old Golden State, they hit you with the whether you make money or lose money or whatever. When you, at the end of the year, you have to pay the $800 something, I think, right? The franchise tax board, right? Whether you make money or lose money. And then there's the state income taxes, all that kind of stuff, right? So just whether you make money or you don't make money, if you have a Nevada LLC, you're gonna not have to deal with that cost. Where it gets complex is if you have multiple properties and the IRS gets into you. Why do you have a Nevada LLC owning California property? What are you doing with Nevada? But by and large, a lot of people do set up Nevada LLCs and buy California real estate. A lot of people set up California, especially if you have a lot of properties and you're concerned with the IRS auditing you, because that was my CPA. The last LLC I did was California for California property. I talked to my CPA about, okay, I'm going to do this Nevada property. And I was like, man, you got a lot going on right now. Are you going to do anything in Nevada? And I answered all the questions, no. I said, okay, go ahead and do this, man. It's $800 a year. You know what I mean? So that was the decision that we made. But a lot of people, whether it's Nevada, Delaware, wherever else, go other places to set their LLCs up. Generally, they want you to have a Florida LLC for a Florida property, a Nevada LLC for a Nevada property. But it's not illegal for you to have a Nevada LLC to own California property at all. You know what I mean? So great questions. But just understand, if you go out to Nevada and you get audited, you need to be able to legitimize why you're doing that, right? So maybe you go out there and do some business, or you get get some sort of economic activity going out in that state, so you can justify what you're doing. You know what I mean? So a couple other structures, REITs, real estate investment trusts. These are big investments. These are public. REITs are publicly traded. They're stocks. You know what I mean? You invest in their company, you own stock in their company. Privately traded REITs that are not on the market, believe they have to have a minimum of 100 investors. Minimum of 100 investors. So REITs are only for big deals. Then there's a thing called community land trusts. A lot of people don't even know about this. Communities, municipalities, nonprofits can connect together and create what's called community land trusts. We have several of them in Oakland, several of them in Berkeley. And these are groups or entities that are typically designed for preserving the use of a property. So we're gonna go buy, the Boys and Girls Club down on 73rd, whatever. We trying to maintain this for the community. Or we're trying to buy this particular property. Oakland and Berkeley have some great community land trusts that do work like that. Very complicated though, and who does what and that. But like Dom, I know you're real involved in the nonprofit world, nonprofit space. If that, and in that world, in that space, a lot of the ownership of property is not so much about making profit and building wealth, more so than it is about preserving where the wealth is and who participates with that wealth, or who participates with the functionality of that property. So that's a very important way of maintaining the integrity of what a building is or what it could be. All right, so now I broke down on the last one. Let me just put this last one on. Don't forget about this. Opportunity Zone funds. Opportunity Zone is a new deal as of 2017, the Tax Cuts Act, where if people in the Opportunity Zone is a lower to moderate census tract area designated all throughout the country, typically the hood, where if you structure an Opportunity Zone fund, this is an entity, LLC here, people can invest their capital gains, their gains. They sold stocks, real estate, not income tax liability, but gains. They sold an asset. They can roll that money into the Opportunity Zone fund, defer the taxes, and it's supposed to, there's some rules around that in terms of how much money that you invest. I used to do this presentation together when it was Opportunity Zones and group investment. Those are two big subjects, so I broke those subjects apart. Opportunity Zones is a whole nother topic, but it's a new structure as of 2017, and it has to be a fund structure. You could do it all yourself, but it at least has to be a fund structure in order to invest in it. And this is just a few of them, y'all. There's a whole bunch of other ways to invest as a group. You know what I mean? Those are just some of the structures. I wanted to give you some of the structures. A couple of the good ones I thought. A couple of ones I like joint tenancy. Don't do that. You gonna buy properties together. Now, a lot of people. I was on joint tenancy. I'll move on. I first learned that when I first got into real estate in 03. I've seen that as done as recent as last year. People buying properties in joint. I know somebody bought properties with their girlfriend in joint tenancy. And you can imagine, and I didn't say wife, girlfriend. So some things happen, the thrill is gone, and now they trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, why? First of all, y'all supposed to call me. You know what I mean? But that is a very difficult situation. So when you're setting things up, it's a business, man. Now, if you're going in with your wife, you're going in with your girlfriend, that could be a great way to do it. Your partners, your boys, your family. I actually think when you look at real estate, most of the world's real estate is owned by families. And I hear this weird thing all the time. It's like, I don't want to work with family. I don't want to work with family. And I'm like, well, you kind of picked the wrong business to be in. I mean, you know, and not to get on Mr. Trump, but he came from a real estate family, and his kids are in the real estate family. No matter what happens, if they're gonna send him to jail, if he's not gonna go to jail, if he's gonna go run for president again, their family is well off before he himself started doing his own deals, right? And that is not the exception. That is the rule. So as individual investors, we come around and we're trying to do things on our own by ourselves. Gotta know you're competing against 9 times out of 10 groups. And a lot of these groups are very wealthy and they're very powerful. In fact, everybody heard of hedge funds? Everybody heard of hedge funds? Everybody heard of the hedge fund BlackRock? Yeah. Which actually, they're not a hedge fund. We all say hedge fund. BlackRock's like the asset manager. It's a whole nother breakdown. But they manage the most assets in the world. There is another private equity company called Blackstone. They're competitors. Huge pools of money trillions of dollars that they manage. Do you know they buy properties at the courthouse steps every day? Mm-hmm. Houses. Not just, yes, apartment buildings and office buildings and stadiums and all of that. Single-family homes. Last year, I read an interesting fact that I think 35% of all homes purchased last year was purchased by private equity funds or investors, which private equity funds led the charge of single-family homes. That's why it was so hard to get a house on top of the 2% money, right? They're buying for a different though. They're renting it out. So if the property dips a little bit, they're not so concerned with that because that's not their stock price. They were buying for the rental yield, the income, right? Which if you learn how to do that, whether the market goes up, sideways, down, you want to be aware of it, you want to be concerned with it, but it's not going to affect you so much, right? So understand the importance of investing in a group. And that's kind of why this slide is, why would we invest in a group? Why would we do that? And the bottom line is, first of all, you want to be able to do more than you can do by yourself individually, right? It's like I coach football, right? I coach 10-year-old football. I got about 25 to 30 kids on a given day at practice. If me as the head coach, just there by myself, it happened to me twice. If I'm there by myself, Isaac know he coached too, and I got 25 kids, and I'm trying to run an offensive practice, at some point I got to take the linemen over here, the backs, the receivers, the quarterbacks. If we're all trying to do that together, it's going to be a bunch of chaos, right? I can only do so much as myself. When we put a group together, now we can do more collectively. You know, Art's over here has got some experience here. Isaac's got some experience here. Marquita has this. Okay, you put some money, I got some credit. We put this together, and now we can roll, right? And then maybe we can compete against, and maybe not against BlackRock or Blackstone, but we can compete against Wolf Green LLC. That's 3 guys that put their money together, and they're out here buying in East Oakland or buying in West Oakland or wherever, because that's what's happening. And a lot of my clients, I do have a couple big clients, but they only do their own deals. But as a broker, by and large, a lot of the people that, I looked last year, several cash deals that happened. 6 commercial listings that we did with cash deals. Of those six, 5 of them were a different group. Only one of them was purchased by themselves. Only one of them. Now, one was a large nonprofit, but every single one was 3 were families. I was going to say 3 were families, so we talk about family, right? That's important. That's why we want to invest as a group. And then you got to understand, you're going against other people who do the same thing. So when people say, I can't buy nothing, I can't invest, because you keep saying, I ain't got no credit, I ain't got no money, I don't got no deals. You got to start thinking, we. All right? Now, skip ahead. You also can limit your liability if you have cash to invest. We talked about that earlier in the sense of when you invest in real estate, you can lose money, but you can also damage your credit. You can also have the bank come after you, other assets. It's a risk. That's why when last year was going the way it was going, I made it a point to explain to each people what you are getting into. And a lot of brokers didn't necessarily do that, right? And because we get paid to get commissions, right? What makes our company a little bit different, we operate what we call the value model. And we want to give valuable advice and bring value to the client in their interest as fiduciaries so they can make wise decisions in their investments. And then we get repeat business, how we started the company, not just slamming people into deals. The commercial real estate, because our deals take a lot longer to close. They're bigger, but they take longer to close. A lot of people just slam. But they do the same thing in residential, right? So we have to make wise decisions. And in part of that, when you invest in a group, you're just putting up that money. They can't come after you. Hey, if you invest in an LLC, you lose the money, the bank is not coming after you. Now, if you're the person putting it together, it's different. Because you're probably the one signing for the loan. And then you are liable for that. But if you're an investor in that, you're not. So that's a benefit. And then on that tip, if you are an investor and you're not the manager, the sponsor, it's called the sponsor, whether that's a general partner or a managing member, or if it's a corporation, the CEO, when you're investing passively, you're getting passive income, right? And that is taxed differently than earned income, by the way, a much lower rate. So and it's truly passive. Some passive income you get, but you still got to be, fixing the toilets and collecting the rents. It's truly passive income because you have a manager who's out there running. So that is why you would invest in it. Now I told you I was gonna keep it real. Everything that glitter ain't gold. There's pros and cons, right? Some of the cons are the investment is illiquid. It's not liquid. You can't just go to your Robinhood app and say, let me liquidate these shares or the LLC interest right here. Don't work like that. Now, real estate itself, if you own property by yourself, is illiquid, right? Meaning it's not as liquid as money in the bank. It's not as liquid as stocks. It's not as liquid as bonds. But it's not liquid. However, if you own a house by yourself, or you own an investment property by yourself, or building by yourself, you can choose, hey, I want to refinance this. I want to sell this. I want to put a line of credit on this, and you make that choice. When you're in a group, it's a collective decision, or it is the manager's decision, depending on how it's structured. So you lose that. You also lose control over the asset. You're not, even if you're the manager, by the way, you can lose control. If you do a bad job, the rest of the partners can oust you. They can kick you out of there. You know what happened to Steve Jobs? Steve Jobs was a tyrant, so I hear. I don't know, I went up in there. But he was a tyrant, they said. First, when Apple was getting real big in 80s and the early 90s, they said he was just terrible to work with, just, relentless person. And so the board fired him, the guy who started the company, right? Public company, they got his ass out of there, all right? Now, if he came back, and we all know the story, but that can happen, and that can happen to you. You put together LLC, and you just not getting it done, and the partners get together and say, well, look, man, it ain't working. They can oust you, right? Now, if you're the investor, and you put that money up, you may have a vote, but you don't have control over the deal. Does that make sense? You got a fourplex building over here, in Oakland. You can buy yourself, you can rent it out, you can do what you want to do, whatever with that. You got a fourplex building with 3 other partners. We need to have a conversation if we're going to refinance. We need to have a conversation if we're going to sell the property. We need to have a conversation if we're going to evict this person. right? You know? So that just understand that. That's, one of the cons of it. Now, this is kind of one of the intangible things. That's not a specific, but it is. Dealing with people can be difficult, right? I mentioned to you guys when kind of the slide when I show my bio, my experience, the different boards that I served on, the different boards I had the honor to be the president of. The reason I brought that up in the context of this presentation is because those experiences helped me a lot. And Madam President right here, Imani runs ARPB, so she could probably relate to this. And running a board translate directly into working in groups of investors. It also translates in probably almost everything you could think about doing in a leadership role or capacity. You know what I mean? Because dealing with people is difficult, right? I remember at ARPB, I had this big thing when I was the president. And my big thing is, hey, when we go and we do our events, we're gonna do our best to see if we can support a black business. There's a lot of black businesses in Oakland, not necessarily getting the support that they could. And my initiative was, hey, I'm gonna go spend my money at Jeffrey Peach. We're gonna be over here at Liege over here. We're gonna be at the one they used to, the sports bar off 55th, I forget what they call it. They had excellent wings. But, it's something different now. That was my initiative, right? We're a black organization. That's what we're about. That's in our charter. We are, organizing for black folks. We are taking time out of listing, selling, and buying real estate to come here for an event. So my thing was, hey, we're going to support these businesses. And I would get pushback, for one reason or another. I remember one time we were doing our gala at Jeffrey Peach, which is one of the established buildings in Oakland, Jeffrey's. He owned that building, by the way, and the business. And one of the people in there was just saying, "Well, I don't like the way the carpet smells. Well, I don't like this and." So we're at a vote, critical vote, right? Are we gonna do this at Jeffrey's, or we're gonna go to Holiday Inn, eat some dry fish? We're gonna go to Jeffrey's and get some plates. You know what I mean? And I think it can kind of be what we're about. You know what I mean? In that instance, and that person's concern was valid. He brought up a good concern. So you have to learn how to work with people, and working with people can be a pain, man. Keeping it real. So it's a skill set. But that also, most people here is real estate. That also is what we do in real estate, or construction, or architecture. Is dealing with people can be the best. That's why I'm a people person. I love the business. Certain days, that's the one that drives me. When I go to football practice, I turn my phone off. And I'm at my place of peace. I can deal with some little kids yelling at them and yelling at me and running around versus having to deal with some people I have to deal with. All right? So whether it's group investing, or it's doing deals, or it's raising a family, or it's going to the grocery store, it's trying to park somewhere, dealing with people is difficult. So develop a skill set. This thing is going to drive me crazy. Keep going. But that is very, very important. And that's an intangible thing. It don't have nothing to do with LLC. It don't have nothing to do with a legal documents or structure. That has nothing to do with rates of return. That's the intangible piece of this, right? And that flows through every. If you could bring up a subject of life, I bet you dealing with people is a critical factor of success of that. I know if you got kids, it is. I can tell you that much. You know what I mean? If you got nieces, nephews, or whatever, for sure. You know what I mean? And our ability to deal with them really kind of helps to push forward that initiative or whatever it is that we're doing. So, I gave you some of the pros, gave you some of the cons. Now we're going to bust this down and get you guys out of here in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So, the technical word, I keep saying group investing, right? That's a buzzword. The real word is called syndication, right? We're syndicating properties. And there's a book called It's a Whole New Business by Gene Trowbridge, CCIM. If this is an interest of yours, I suggest you go to Amazon and order his book. Very, very, very detailed book about how to put together syndications, legally, economically, all these things, the risks, the pros, the cons, all of that. And he just maps out in his book. And this is, kind of what I got out of his book. Say you want to go buy a 20-unit apartment building that's $2 million, but you don't got $2 million. Or you don't have the $600,000 to put down as a down payment. What you can do is you can go out there and get 10 investors who put up $200,000, and now you buy the property. But that's a lot of management. 10 people, 200,000. That's tough to do. What might be easier to do is to find 6 people with 100,000 and put that down and look at a mortgage. Either way it goes, they're both groups. investment, they're both syndications. Most sponsors who put these things together, they do use an element of debt. What a lot of them do though is try to use minimal debt as possible. Meaning that maybe we get a 60% loan as opposed to 80% loan. Most lenders, they're not giving you 80% anyway. But you try to minimize your debt because you have people's equity behind it. And a lot of investors who invest like this don't mind investing behind a loan, but they don't want to invest behind something they think is too highly leveraged. You hear highly leveraged, that has to do with the loan to value ratio, right? And you want to kind of stay 70 and below. Now, say you find an excellent deal and you know you can fix it up and you'll make huge upside and you can get a loan more than that, yeah, of course. But by and large in general, that ratio is kind of where you want to be, 70%, right? Now, this is the big thing we talk about. The thing about group investing is raising money, right? Raising money. And that's not easy. A lot of people who have sales skills don't necessarily transfer that into raising money. Now, I don't exactly know what the breakdown is. I started in the business raising money before I started in sales. So my course in real estate, I started working for an investment firm in San Jose, and they would buy buildings. And with my role, I would reach out to, I was calling CPAs, financial planners, real estate agents. I would pull up LMLS and see what properties say 1031 exchange, because there's a way you can do that. And I'm calling people who are doing the exchange. So I'm calling and say, hey, we've got this apartment building over here. We got this shopping center. Would you like to invest in it, basically, right? I did that before I learned how to. So for me, I actually, raising money, I would say came easy, but that's something that I've been doing longer than even sales. But it is a difficult thing because you're asking people for money. It's one thing when you're just selling a building or you're listing their building. Once you're asking them to invest, and essentially you're asking them to invest in you or your company, right? So it's a little bit of a science and a little bit of an art form as well. However, it ain't rocket science. It ain't something that's impossible. It just requires a certain skill set, right? And there's some new laws that are around. It's 2012, not 1912. And it's called, as a result of the Jobs Act, the Obama administration was put in place. There's ways to raise money for small to medium businesses, people, small to medium investors, to where you can advertise and get your investment out there in a major way. Now you got to follow certain rules, but this is executed primarily through crowdfunding platforms. You guys heard of crowdfunding before? Crowdfunding it's group investing, crowdfunding. Crowd funds or investors, something the same thing. Been around for years. But that got popularized after 2012 because now these crowdfunding sites popped up all over the world where you can, small mom and pop business, go in there and try to raise $1 million and that can get broadcast. Because before that, you cannot advertise. The only people that can advertise investments is the Charles Schwab's, TD Ameritrades and all that of the world, The small and medium-sized investors just didn't have access to that. You can still raise money, because most people raise money through family, friends, associates. But in terms of broadcasting out there, this is all new, right? And still, the best way of raising money is through family, friends, associates, and personal relationships. But there is this avenue of crowdfunding, and some people have been able to blow up. In fact, there's a brother, his name is Jay Morrison, and he runs something called a Tulsa Fund. He actually came out and spoke when I was president in 2018 at KRAP, at Jeffrey Pete's, by the way. I won that argument in our board meeting. And he came and spoke, him and his wife. And he started the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. And it's the largest, I think I'm going to say, I might be wrong, tier 2 crowd fund. He raised $10 million online with minimum increments of $500. Now that is a lot of management. You know what I mean? He's still around, they're still doing good. But he was successful in doing that online. I want to share that success story with you guys because that's something that is possible. Right? And what he did is say, hey, look at the Obama campaign, how they did this. Obama probably got elected because he broke records raising money both times. Obviously he was, he can speak real well, has great ideas. He had a lot of opposition too, though. In this society that we're in of capitalism, capital is pretty important. what Obama did very well in both his campaigns was raise money, and he did this grassroots, kind of style of busting it down. Put up $20 online, just invest. Well, not invest. What do they call it? Support. $20. But they blew up, and with the internet, it was widespread. So that method of raising money is kind of very similar to the crowdfunding method of raising money, and it spread like wildfire, right? So just some food for thought. Now, I'm gonna go with some of the tried and true methods. I wanted to break that out because understand this is big, and it ain't going nowhere. Crowdfunding and all that, and GoFundMe. You've seen people GoFundMe's. Maybe somebody passes away. I see a lot of GoFundMe sites, or there's a cause. Essentially, that's crowdfunding. Essentially, and maybe that's not investing, but that's the same concept of putting people's capital together to go out and achieve something, right? Now, these ways here, because with the internet and technology, that's all good, but it's still a people business, right? And so some of the best way of raising money is developing relationships with people, and you can do that by going through networking seminars and trade shows like the ones you're sitting in right now. All right, we're having one now. I'm teaching a class next week at Bay East. There's ARPB just had a barbecue on Sunday. CCIM just had a golf tournament last week. Everybody's back outside now. Y'all know we was all on Netflix for a while, for 2 years, and Netflix stopped the drop because everybody went out there and they're back in the world. And we'd have had them too much Netflix for you know what I mean? But now these events are back, and it's nothing. Virtual events is cool, and I'm glad we had that, but it's nothing like getting out there, right? And they're back. K-Rab is next. Is it October 20 something? The week of October 20, 18th. The week of October 18th, and I'll be speaking on that Friday in LA. So we're California Association of Real Estate Brokers. We're having our annual conference, and I'm going to be talking about group investing opportunity zones. There's going to be somebody else in there talking about finding great deals. Somebody else talking about 1031 exchange. Somebody else in there talking about flipping properties. Somebody else, I believe, is going to be in there talking about how to become a top producer in real estate. You need to be there in these type of places, because that's how you meet people, and that's how you do deals. I remember we was going back in the day. I remember when Trump, before he was the president, he came and did one of Robert Kiyosaki's events back in like 07 or 08. We went, and we had met a whole bunch of people. People ended up investing with us and doing some deals and doing some business, right? You know what I mean? You got to get out there. You got to go network, man. And here's another thing. Most of you guys are in business of some kind. I know pretty much everybody here, not everybody. And obviously not y'all. But if you're listening and you're sitting here, you're in business of some kind. Even if you don't formally have a business of your own, you're either working as an employee for somebody's business, or you are using your mind right now to think business, right? And hopefully you've done that in the past. If you haven't, you just need to keep going. And when you do that, you have pre-existing relationships. And hopefully you've developed a good reputation. Because if you develop a good reputation and you find an excellent deal, you can call people and say, hey, look, y'all, I got a great deal. I don't got all the money, I'll tell you right now. I found us a great deal. Come on, let's sit down and talk about how we can, do some business together. So pre-existing relationships. If you are in business, if you are a broker, or you in business of any kind, past and current clients, or past and previous clients, past, current, previous clients who you've done business with can be a great resource to people to go in with you on deals. And I've done this a lot, because if you do good by somebody, they're happy about it. Hey, they want, you know how hard it is to find good people to do business with? Have anybody hired, whether it's contractors, real estate people, and y'all know, it just being in real estate, if you're an agent or broker, working with other brokers, how hard is it to find a good other broker to work with? I can't tell you how many times I tore my waves out, dealing with some other agent that's just, making the thing more difficult or more of a problematic situation. So when you do good business, people want to, do business with you. So no matter what you're doing right now, make sure you keep that database. Make sure you keep a good reputation, because you may be doing a venture a year, 2 years from now, where you're raising $1 million, raising $10 million, and you want to be able to go back and call people. They may not invest with you, but you're not going to have the chance for them to invest with you if you screw them over or you don't keep a good reputation. You know what I mean? And I'm not perfect. I'm sure I've fallen short, but by and large, through my history of doing business, it's been about relationships. When I got started in '09, I was a young pup in the game, baby on the way, first baby and all this, but I had a couple quality relationships of people who were trusted me and we had done business, and so they were out buying properties and I was selling them properties. I was able to start a business without no money, really. I didn't have no money at that time, but I started a business with relationships. So you can do the same thing when you're talking about investing in a group, all right? There's just a couple other ways: wealth managers, financial planners. I got a good friend, Jason Matthews. I think you was referred by Jason Matthews. Marquita, I think we first met through Jason Matthews. We've been rocking for 10 years, 12 years actually. I say rocking, we do seminars together. Next month, me and him will be here. We'll be talking about inflation. We're gonna go in depth on the economy and then talk about strategies of how to, I'm gonna talk more about like creative financing. He's gonna be talking about what the heck is going on with this economy and what do we do money-wise and capital-wise. So you need to know a bunch of those people. Now, side note, if you are a broker agent, you need to know a bunch of those people, right? Same people you need to know if you're gonna, because those people have people that, hey, I wanna buy or sell my house. Hey, I wanna buy or sell a fourplex. Hey, I need to buy a property for my business. I need to sell my business property. So you need to be in contact with wealth managers, financial planners, CPAs, lawyers. You have to have them in your network. And they all have groups, by the way, that you can go and network with, right? There's a lawyers group, there's a doctors group, that, there's all these groups that you need to be aware of, especially wealth managers, financial planners, and CPAs, because their clients have money to invest, and almost all of them, no matter how they make their money, no matter how much stock they own, almost all of them at some level own real estate or want to own real estate. And a lot of those are good candidates to invest because they got busy businesses or corporate jobs or whatever they're doing in life. So and that can be a great way to do it. So you want to make sure that you are, if you think about putting a group, you have options open. You can go to a crowdfunding website and set up a crowdfund, try to raise some money. You want to go network with people. You want to go to different trade associations. You want to develop a relationship. If you have business, a book of business, you want to reach out to your past clients. These are excellent ways of being able to raise money, right? Now, who are some of these people? I was talking about the methods, but now we're talking about like the who. Who are some of these people? People who have self-directed IRAs. You heard of that before? Self-directed individual retirement accounts. So this is when they say, hey, Charles Schwab, I want to take my money out of Charles Schwab and I want to set up a self-directed IRA. Now I'm going to make the decisions on where my money gets invested, not you. Nothing personal, Charles Schwab and them, but I'm going to make the choice, right? And you got to follow rules. But these folks are great investors because when they invest, they have to invest for the long. They're investing for their retirement. So what does that mean? They're not trying to pull their money out in 2 months because they spent too much money over here and they need to put some money back in their bank account. No, because if they take money out of their IRA, they're going to pay a heavy penalty, right? So they have to, money they make from the IRA gets reinvested into the IRA, and they are focused on the loan. Doesn't mean they're not smart investors and just here goes my money. No, but they have a reason for investing that maybe is more in line with your reason for putting the group together. And then people who are conducting 1031 exchanges. Very, very important, right? Because when you do an exchange, I explained a little bit about what that is. You are trying to defer the taxes. You are saying, I'm not about to pay all those taxes. So, therefore, I'm going to do a 1031 exchange. I'm going to sell my property. I'm going to put the money, instead of me taking the money, it's in a qualified intermediary. Within 45 days, I'm going to identify a property, and within 180 days, I got to close on that property or properties, right? Those people oftentimes are looking for groups to invest. We talked about tenants in common. We talked about DSTs. A lot of 1031 exchangers going. In fact, I sold a couple properties recently. I just sold a 20-unit building on 75th, and that investor chose to do a corporate DST, and I think that DST, the reason they chose it was like an Amazon fulfillment center. I'm over here pitching them deals. Hey, come on, do this deal with me or do this deal. And they said, well, Steve, okay, that looks great, but we're gonna go ahead and do this Amazon fulfillment center. And I can't even be mad at them, right? You know, but I am glad that they didn't pay no taxes. Because I don't want them their taxes was gonna be about 35, 40%. Meaning if they'd have made $1 million, they was gonna pay $350 to $400. Right? And that's not a good feeling, man, especially when your goal is to invest. So, a lot of these folks are looking for groups to invest in because a lot of them are saying, I don't want to do the legwork no more. I want to kick my feet up, or I'm too busy. It's not that I'm, I want to kick my feet up. It's that I'm too busy running my business over here, or I'm in my tech job, or in my corporate world, where I got all these kids, whatever it is. They're not trying to be active in the deal, right? So that can be a great source of investors to go in and deal with you. They have to have a deeded interest. Gotta have a good attorney. And by the way, gotta have a good attorney. If you're putting together syndications like this, you have to have a good attorney on your team and a good CPA, a certified public accountant, to handle all the legal and the tax situations, right? Very important. Now, busy professionals who are making money and don't have time to sit down and go and find properties, right? In the Bay Area, it's a lot of people like that. Because if you're making $200,000-300,000 on a job, particularly, you working. You know what I mean? There's a few people out there making content on the internet. I heard somebody getting paid $1.7 million for every TikTok video they do. I'm like, man, how they getting $1.7 million for doing 1.7 million? You know what I mean? But that's few and far between, right? Most people that get $200,000-300,000 in a year in the Bay, you working at Salesforce or you working at, where Google or whatever, you working. The tech companies, they got a lot of benefits and it's cool, but they are driven companies. They're very, very competitive. So you working for them, you working, and it ain't 40 hours a week, more than that. So a lot of times that person, hey, maybe they're making $200,000-300,000, and they got this dough, but they may not have the time to go out there and invest it. You know what I'm saying? So they need you, or you could bring a value to them by bringing them a good deal. Another thing to think about this: ambitious people who want to do more than they can do for themselves. And I've done a couple of deals with people who, hey, we just have similar mindsets, and we know we can't do it. I couldn't do this by myself. You can do this by yourself. We come together. Now we can do something better, right? Now we can do something more. That's critical. That's critical. And then lastly, is people who realize the game. That is 1031 people sell property in 1031. But if you sell stocks and you have a gain. You sell a company and you have a gain. You sell art or some gold or some silver and investment. You're not 1031 exchanging those. So you have this gain that could be 30 to 40%. The minimum gain in California, I think, is 29%. There's 21% for the feds and 9.5% for the state of California. So that's 30% minimum. Those people have to reinvest somewhere. So these are ideal prospects or people who can benefit from a group investment, right? And these, as we're talking about this whole IDAN concept. I'll wrap with this. It has to do with bringing value, right? Anything you do, we talked about, don't let your personal situation or circumstance stop you from buying real estate. Because you might say, I don't have money and I don't have credit. Now, we want to work on getting some money. We want to work on building up that credit, right? But we don't necessarily, that doesn't need to stop us from going and doing good. Especially if you know how to find deals, right? I need to do a seminar just on that, yes. On how to find deals, you know what I mean? Right? And something I talk with my agents, we have 2 meetings every single week where we have a sales meeting and we have a role play. And the focus in one way or another, every sales meeting on Friday, we have some sort of training, right? And the role play, we go over our conversations, our scripts on what we do in cold call, our scripts when we have follow-up call. We did a role play the other day, Monty, we were saying, okay, well, let's talk about a client. What's a client you got? What's a difficult client you got? Let's role play that, right? Because essentially, what we are doing as a real estate brokerage firm is spending our activities working for deals, looking for deals, whether that's finding the properties themselves that need to be sold or finding the buyers that need to want to go buy something, putting them together, whatever. We spend our life in brokerage, looking for deals and putting deals together, right? So when you figure that out, now you bring value to somebody who maybe has capital, but they don't have the time, right? Or maybe has capital, but they're trying to do something outside of themselves. And at the crux of this idea and concept of coming together as a group is really bringing value to others, or bringing what you have to the table so that now the collective value is more than what you had individually. That's the key. You know what I'm saying? I started off talking about where we at in the economy, right? It's tough sledding right now. Let's just don't sugarcoat it. You know what I mean? If we're better off, I'll go back to my football coaching analogy. And, I tell the kids, look, we're going to prepare for a dog fight come Saturday. So every day we have certain things we do. We're going to run some laps, we hit some push-ups, we do some sprints. We have this thing called a sled. We push that sled around. This is the sled we have. It's a big, I don't know how much it weighs. It feels like it's 1,000 pounds. But these 10-year-old boys, we put 5 of them in a row, get them together. We was hard at first, but now them boys get down, they get set, and they move that baby 5-10 yards at a time. And that, when they work together like that, now one of them try to move that thing, it barely moves. When they put their resources together, they move as a unit. They take that 1,000+ pound, I don't know how big it is, it's heavy. It's hard for high school. I remember being in high school having to do that. These guys are 10, but they work together and they push that sled. You know what I'm saying? And in doing so, now they're bringing value, right? And every single day we have to do these things to better ourselves, to bring more value, and that we can go to the marketplace in times like this, a difficult time. When you spend that time, driving that sled, when you spend that time looking for deals, bringing value, the opportunity will present itself and you will be ready. But you gotta be working. You gotta be grinding. It's not time to be like, oh, the real estate market, interest rates are high, I'm gonna go do something else. You know what I mean? This is the time to say, yeah, interest rates are high. Through that, markets slow down, prices are down, right? It's time for me to find my opportunity. You know what I mean? And I've seen there before. Now, this is not a crash when you compare it to 2007, 2008. I don't know, do we call it 27 or do we call it 07? Yeah. 07. And I remember October 08 when the stock market dropped 600 something points, and the same that we was in contract with a deal in Ohio. We was selling a property. We was in Ohio. We was out there. We in contract. The investor, we went and all had dinner. The investor, I'm excited. I'm gonna close this deal. We excited. We selling the deal. We get back on Monday. The stock market falls. The whole AIG about to go out of business. We get the call. We get the call. I'm out of the deal. I'm out. Everybody was out of the deal at that time. In our office from October 08 to the end of 08, in our real estate office, 2 deals got done. I sold a fourplex and somebody else sold something else. 2 deals. I think there were 70 people. So this is not that, right? But it is a change. And if we want to profit during this change, we can't sugarcoat it. We can't pretend like it don't exist. We got to meet it head on, know what it is, and then identify those opportunities, right? And so what we do, we've got a couple opportunities. We're doing that now. I can't go into the details about this, but there's, any of y'all from Oakland know Soul Beat? You know that name, Soul Beat? Paul Chambers, who owns this complex, Chambers Complex, has purchased the 2 sites, the old Soul Beat site, the site adjoining to it, and I'm partnering with him to develop the sites, and we're going to develop the old Soul Beat site, and that's going to be ghost kitchens. It's going to be 8 ghost kitchens, people who sell food online and just go there and make very profitable rental model. It's going to be a restaurant next door, outdoor space. We're going to bring food to a very, very dry food desert of East Oakland. Mm-hmm. If you've ever worked in East Oakland and been out there, I know you do a couple flips out there. It's like, where we go get something to eat? You got to either find you a burrito truck or you going to McDonald's, Taco Bell, or something like that. It's a food desert. You have all these people that need food, right? And food, whether the economy's up, down, around, food can make money. Now, there's different models. Like we found the ghost kitchen model is a lot of profit. In the pandemic, that's what blew up. Because you couldn't go down and sit down in restaurants for a while, but you could order. And what the restaurants figured is, hey, maybe I just get me a kitchen, and I don't have sit down. There's one of our favorite Chinese food, Holly, I always get this, Holly Mandarin on Piedmont. We pulled up there the other day to go sit down and grab some Chinese food with the family, and they was like, nah, it is, you can order, but you ain't sitting down. It's just, they've eliminated it. They even have a restaurant space, but they eliminated that out of their business model. They just sell the food over the, you order. You have to order. It's a big model. So that's one way we're adding in value. We bought a hotel in Stockton. It's a 40-room hotel. It's what's called single room occupancy hotel. It's kind of like a dormitory style. What we're doing there is going to convert those 40 rooms probably to about 32 to 33 apartments, studios and 1 bedrooms that we now will rent. It's vacant for 20 years. There's 4 commercial spaces. Now we're going to take that and convert that into a house. An 8-unit building that's an REO here in Oakland that we just found. We're working on it now. 7 of the 8 units is vacant. It was people squatting and doing a whole bunch of stuff they weren't supposed to be doing up in there. And we're working on that building, and we're going to renovate it. And we're going to bring some housing over there. So those are some of the things that we are doing. And last year we were trying to do something. It was time to, for me, step back, put valuable content out there, bring value, transact deals. But it was like, it wasn't the best time to go out and buy. Even though the interest rate was 2%. Because you was competing against so many other people, the opportunities wasn't so much there. Now with the interest rate at 6-something%, there's 10 times the opportunity. I didn't even talk about seller financing today. That's next month, right? But I just looked today. I saw 3 apartment buildings hit the market, whether they hit the market or I just saw the emails today that said seller finance. So the thing I want to encourage y'all and leave y'all with is that opportunity don't stop just because the market is sideways. And in fact, there's bigger and better opportunities during this time. So to us to figure out how to navigate the waters, stay disciplined, have courage, because look, it gets tough. It gets tough. And that's, I think, important is not to sidestep it like, oh, no, it's going to blow over. It's, like they're saying in Florida. I was talking about my sister yesterday. She's in the eye of the storm. She's in Cape Coral, which is Fort Myers, Cape Coral. Mm-hmm. They are getting pounded right now. You know what I mean? I'm praying for my little baby sis and family. And but yesterday when I talked to her, it was a category 1. And that was like, they had a mandatory evacuation, but it wasn't mandatory evacuations. Mm-hmm. This morning we woke up, it was category 4. And the municipality was saying we should have did a mandatory evacuation. Mm-hmm. Now, even if it's mandatory, people don't listen all the time. I would have been out. I told Sid, I said, oh, y'all tripping. I was in category 2.5, 1.5, I was gone. You know what I mean? But a lot of people down there, they have hurricane threats all the time. So they're like, it wasn't a big one. We got to address what's coming at us head on in order to be able to make wise decisions. So that's what I want to leave with y'all, whether that's investing with a group, whether that's investing individually, whether that's say, hey, I just want to get into business, or hey, I want to sell properties. Like I know you made a transition from banking to sales, big transition. And don't let the fact that this market's different, good, bad, I don't believe in good, bad, and it relates to markets. You know what I'm saying? It's, where the price is, up, down, where the rates are, because when it's down, it's going to be good for some people, it's going to be bad for people. When it's up, it's going to be good for some people, it's going to be bad for some people. If it's up, it's fantastic time to sell. Trying to buy something though, that's kind of tough. You know what I mean? So now trying to sell something, oh man, not impossible, but it's difficult. Trying to buy something though, rates are higher, but you got more buying power. So just keep that in mind as y'all go out and do what you do, and stay tapped into with us with the content that we do. And like I said, we now back in person. And after I coach football during this fall. So in the spring, in the winter and spring, we'll be back in the evening time doing seminars. We can relax a little bit more, do it during the day while I have to coach at night. But we back, you know what I mean? And stay tapped in what we're doing. Share this information with others. If you guys are out there in the business, create some content, find deals, look for opportunities, because in these times it's go time. It's time to make some money. It's time to make a difference. Thank you very much. I got some hors d'oeuvres and stuff. Make yourself home. Thank you.
Thank you.